I think yesterday's shooting is another example of what the problem is. The problem is mental health, and these young men who seem to be inspired to commit these atrocities. So I think the bill that we passed targeted the problem.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell speaking yesterday. Again, no mention of the weapon used in Highland Park. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger of Virginia. She is a former CIA officer. Congresswoman, it's good to see you. We've been talking about this ad nauseum, haven't we, for months and years now, that there is an aggrieved young man who is able to get access to a weapon that can kill many people in a very short period of time. It's just a statement of fact that if this guy dressed up as a woman climbed to the roof of a building with a shotgun or a handgun, more people would be alive today than are. So there is some gun legislation that made it through recently, made it through the House and through the Senate, got some Republican votes signed by the president. But there are no Republicans who support, for example, banning altogether semi-automatic rifles, or at least even raising the age to 21 to buy one.
So your point is exactly correct. He didn't climb to the roof with a baseball bat or a knife or any other sort of weapon. He climbed to the roof with an assault-style weapon, which is how it is that he was able to kill 7 individuals who were out on the 4th of July celebrating our rights, our freedoms as Americans. What we have seen in the House, yes, we have passed some gun legislation with major investments in mental health, which I applaud, which I'm proud of. We passed that through the Senate and the House, and it moved to the president's desk. It's now been signed into law. But in the House, we also passed a suite of bills, and there was bipartisan support for raising the age limit. Many of your voters may know, or excuse me, many of your viewers may know, that you have to be 21 to buy a handgun in the United States, but only 18 to buy an assault-style rifle. This is an important change that we can make to ensure that the law treats these types of firearms the same, when indeed, in fact, their lethality is not the same. But at least recognizing that if at one point in time, from a federal perspective, we view that you have to be 21 for a handgun, you should at least have to be 21 to have an assault-style rifle. Of course, in this circumstance, this murderer had, as I understand it, is above 21, but of course the murderer in Uvalde, the murderer in Buffalo, as well as so many others, were under that age. There was bipartisan support for that in the House. There was also bipartisan support for limiting magazine capacity. Before I was a CIA officer, I was a federal agent during the time of what was known as the assault weapons ban, which included a capacity limit for magazines. And so the magazines that I carried as a federal law enforcement officer were marked for law enforcement use only because they carried more than 10 rounds. We know that the lethality of mass shootings is higher when large capacity magazines are utilized because they do not allow that time, that break for people to escape, for first responders, or for good Samaritans to come in when a shooter is able to shoot off so many rounds in quick succession.
Congresswoman, you're from a swing district, one of those districts that will determine whether Republicans or Democrats take control of the House in January 23. I'm curious, what are the views of your constituents on universal background checks, on the possibility of banning weapons designed for war, the so-called assault-style weapons? What are those numbers?
So across our district, we see really varied support. And I think you characterized our district as a swing district. It was long a Republican-only voting district till I won in 2018. Across the district, I hear from people who identify as Republicans, identify as independents, identify as Democrats, supporting universal background checks, supporting red flag laws, supporting common sense measures, including capacity of your limits on magazine capacity, changing and raising the age limit for assault-style weapons purchases. A full production stoppage for assault-style weapons is something that doesn't have as much broad support. But certainly, it's something that I have been very honest with the people that I represent, that I do support it, and I clearly give the reasons why. And all of the incoming to my congressional office, all of the conversations I have along the campaign trail, there's broad support for, an incredible suite of common sense reforms that would save lives, as we look towards a future where potentially we do move forward and ultimately perhaps we do garner bipartisan support for a prohibition on assault style weapons like the ones we had in 1994.